yourself to be worthy.
Hey friends, and welcome back to Path of Exile for a Day 5 update on our Phys.Elementalist. Now, the build is going exceptionally well, and we've made a ton of improvements since last time, and a lot of that has to do with getting very lucky, but this is something that you can replicate with a little extra time in farming. Now, as you saw at the very beginning of the video, because that is the clip I started off with, we got a Svalin, which is a very expensive shield, and we sold it. So we are using a staff. We don't need Svalin for this build. We dropped that Svalin, and that is effectively plus 44 divines. I sold it for 43 to sell it quickly, but we did sell it, and we were able to utilize that to upgrade our gear. Now, we have not done a lot of the upgrades that we are planning, but before we get into some of the gear changes we made since last time, we've switched farming strategies, and we are now going after Harbingers. I like Harbingers more. I have more fun farming Harbingers, and it is still a continuous profit thing, and there is no magic find element to Harbingers, which is also very nice. Now, the most important thing that we bought with that 44C is a Light of Meaning physical damage. So this is a 14 or so div jewel. And so this is a huge multiplier in damage, because the other thing we got yesterday is an Unnatural Instinct. And so this combination with Light of Meaning right here and Unnatural Instinct right here means we're getting a huge amount of physical damage increases from this over here. We also get a benefit from all of this regen over here, which is very nice as well. And we get duration from these, so we've dropped all of this duration. We haven't unspec'd this dexterity because we do need the dexterity, so we need to find a better solution for dexterity, and that means we probably need to recraft our gloves. So we unspec'd these in order to spec in this Unnatural Instinct, and that's about it. Next couple of levels, we need to focus on getting this jewel socket and this endurance addition, because we're going to recraft a couple of pieces of our gear next. So next up is recrafting our staff and chest piece. Those are the two things that we want to prioritize. So our chest, we want to go for a tier 1 base, and in order to do that, we just bought a new base, which we are going to fossil craft. And then the next thing is our staff, which is just meta crafting, which means we have to go get the meta crafts wherever they're found in maps. And then we are going to finish off this staff craft with a prefixes cannot be changed, a null off the gain life per enemy killed, and then we do a multi-mod craft reforge physical and hope that we get a good result. And so we'll be doing that probably today on stream, but yeah, we have a significant amount of divines to work with, because the only thing we've spent out of that 44 is the divines we needed in order to get the Light of Meaning. So that is the update as far as actually what's happened. So let's switch over to PoB to see what that looks like. Swapping over to PoB, here's what we're looking at. So you can see that our damage has increased immensely since the last time, and so much of that comes from the Light of Meaning right here. So if we disable the Light of Meaning, you can see that we gained a much more reasonable amount, and so it's all coming from Light of Meaning and the Unnatural Instinct. The remainder of that is coming from our Empower support hitting level 3, and so we finally got the level on that, and that's where the last of that damage difference is coming from. So re-enabling all of these things, we have this and this. So here's where we're at now, and so we now have a 1.6 million DPS for 10 stages of Corrupting Fever, and if we use Val Reap on top of that, we have a very nice amount of damage. This is also without our mercenary. Our mercenary should always be giving us malevolence, so please find a mercenary with malevolence, give them some gear. I have not done that yet. We have a malevolence mercenary, we have not given them any gear, that is something that we're planning on doing very soon. One thing that I am going to do on my mercenary is I am absolutely going to do a Shaper's Seed, which is going to give them life regen and keep them alive, but more importantly, it's going to give me life regen, and I like life regen a lot. So this is an item that I'm absolutely planning on using on my mercenary, and we'll just be making them as tanky as possible because I don't care how much damage they do. I care that they're giving me malevolence. Going back to PoB, what we can do is we can actually look at how much damage we gain from a malevolence. So right here, just enabling malevolence. So we have 1,600,000 DPS with 10 stacks of corrupting fever without malevolence. With malevolence, we go straight up to 2 million. This is assuming a level 20 malevolence. I don't know if that's going to be the case. I have no idea how strong the malevolence is on the mercenaries, but if we take off the quality, which shouldn't matter because that's just AoE, and we go all the way down to a level 1 malevolence, we still almost get to 2 million. It's that powerful for us. So malevolence is awesome. So as for next steps, what we want to do is finish out our staff, which is not a... It's not a difficult craft, it is an expensive craft. And so you want to be very careful with this, because what you're going to want to do is you're going to add a crafting bench modifier of prefixes cannot be changed. So prefixes cannot be changed, and you add that as opposed to the +2 level of socketed supports. Then you hit this with an annul to remove the gain life per enemy killed. That is the only other suffix that can be removed, since this is a fractured suffix, which will probably remove... There's a chance it'll remove the prefixes cannot be changed. If it does that, reapply this. So it's an expensive process, but you want to remove that gain life per enemy. Once that is removed, you will do another metacraft of 3 crafted modifiers, and then you add back really any prefix. The prefix doesn't matter at this point, because you just want to fill the prefixes to make sure that nothing else happens, and then you add the final modifier of prefixes cannot be changed. The prefixes cannot be changed, multi-mod, and any prefix modifier. And then you're going to go over to the harvest bench and reforge physical. Now, what's going to happen there is it will keep the crafted prefix on, and it will reforge the suffixes with a physical modifier. The only modifier that's available for a war staff is physical damage over time multi. So what we can do is we can craft basically a copy of this, so 35 dot and 144 minion. Let's cancel this and we'll craft a brand new war staff, which is a maelstrom staff, and we're gonna just recreate what we have. So socketed gems and new modifier essence of fear, and we actually got a perfect roll on that, so that's awesome. So and then we have damage over time multi at 35, I think. So yeah, that's 35, and we want fizz damage over time multi. And so we want a good roll, but really a tier 3 is just fine. And then we add modifier, and we're going to put back on, in the end, the +2 level of socketed supports. So if we add this, we are adding another 368,000 corrupted blood DPS, which brings us almost to 2 million on just corrupting blood. Which is outstanding. That is exactly where we want to be. So that is awesome for us. And that is if we get a mid-roll physical damage over time multi. Obviously, the better this roll is, the better we have things. I don't expect us to get a high roll on this, but we can dream. That is the ideal. This is what I would say, if you don't get this or better, I would say redo the craft, because this is good, but I would rather have a mid-roll or better. And then the other thing we plan on doing tonight is recrafting our sacred chainmail. Now, what we want to do with this is I kind of want to just have a 100% defensive sacred chainmail. So we're going to go armor ES, sacred chainmail, and then we're going to try and use dense fossils to get what we want, because we have a sacred chainmail with memory strands, and I think that works with fossils. So here's the hope: we get a at least tier 2 on increase, at least tier 2 on hybrid flat, and that already is much better than what we already have. But we also kind of want a hybrid increase stun of tier 2. So this is the ideal we want to shoot for, is something like this. Any of these being tier 1 or all of these being tier 1 is obviously much better, and I am willing to spend a significant amount of money on this. And then we can do some interesting suffixes, or we can craft around with suffixes a little bit. We'll figure that out when we get to that step. We probably need a resistance. I would like additional physical damage multi. But the other thing that we can do is, so we have Searing and Eater. And for Searing Exarch, I kind of want to give up this damage and go with Endurance Charges. Which is right here. So I think if we can get this down to 13 seconds, there's a real possibility that we can give ourselves effectively permanent endurance charge uptime with 4 endurance charges. I don't know if we can actually pull this off. I hope we can. But the base duration of endurance charges is 10 seconds. There is a rune graft that gives you 30% increased buff duration. And so I'm thinking every 13 seconds we might be able to pull it off. We might need 12 seconds, which will be a little more expensive, but that is something that I kind of want to do. So that is going to be the what we want to go for Searing Exarch. For the Eater of Worlds Implicit, we can go block attack or block spell as defensive options, and these are both incredible. Or we can go Fizz Taken As, which is also an incredible option. Anything except for Fizz Taken as Chaos is going to be great, and any aura effect is also going to be pretty nice. So Malevolence, Pride, Discipline, Determination. Probably don't go Malevolence, since I don't know if this is going to interact with the Malevolence aura coming from your Mercenary. So Pride, Determination, Discipline are all really good for damage. You can see that there's a huge increase in damage that we get from Pride, which is probably more worthwhile than the increases that we can get to our tankiness, but that's really up to you to decide for yourself. And I think that does it for the plans that we have for today. Obviously this is going to be a huge increase in our defensiveness, as this alone is going to add another basically 1000 ES to our total build, and that's going to give us obviously more ES regen. So I'm looking forward to this. I think it's going to be really nice for us. And I think that does it for today's update. We do have the Maven boss fight for the end. Someone commented yesterday that they're seeing a lot of self-cast Reap on this auto primer build. You can absolutely fight all of these bosses without clicking any buttons. You will be relying strictly on your corrupted blood as your main source of damage, and that is going to be something like 1 million at the point we did it yesterday, which is enough to do any of these bosses, but you are leaving damage on the table if you don't do that. So Corrupting Fever is absolutely going to stack automatically as long as you're within the Bladefall range. However, if you look at Reap, if you only have 1 blood charge, that is still half of your overall damage that you can just add on to what's going on. And so it's absolutely worth using. Val Reap is the same way. Whenever you get the chance to use it, even if you only have 1 blood charge, that is still an extra 1 million damage that you can just throw down. So you can do these without the benefit of Reap, but since we can only support Corrupting Fever with 4 supports anyway, and we have a 6 socket, there is no point in not using Reap. And I think that covers it for today. Thank you all so much for watching. I've had an amazing time putting this build together, and I think we're getting pretty close to where I kind of want to be at the end of this build. I think today, if we can finish the chest and staff, I'm going to go ahead and jump into T17 and see how those feel. And yeah, it's been a fun ride. I didn't expect to be done with the build so quickly, but that's what I get for, I guess, getting super lucky with a Fallen drop. Thanks so much for watching, and as always, I'll see you next time.